First Peter chapter 3 as we're going to pick up where we left off last week, talking really not so much about marriage as much as this section. We're going to kind of keep going with what Peter's thought process is as he's, again, writing to those who are being exiled, those who are going through persecution. It's like all of a sudden, I think one thing you have to recognize is Peter's writing this, again, to those who are being exiled, to those who are being persecuted. And then all of a sudden, it seems like Peter's talking and then he's writing. And all of a sudden, he stops and goes, wait. One of the things that's going to be hit when persecution comes is going to be marriages. Anytime suffering takes place, it seems like marriage is the one that gets affected the most. And what Pastor Kevin said last week is he kind of warned us. And so I want to remind us of the warning Pastor Kevin said. He said, number one, he said the next 3 weeks we're going to, Peter's talking about marriage. And so we decided as a staff, hey, what we want to do is we want to slow it down a little bit and let's take some 3 weeks to talk about marriage and what does it look like, how does it function, what's the roles, and those types of things. And so the tendency then is if you're single in here, all of a sudden you're going to disconnect. You're talking about marriage, that's not me, I don't care. And so you automatically click out. And what Pastor Kevin said last week was, hey, don't click out. Someday you're going to be married, and if you wait till you're married to figure out marriage, guess what? You're already behind. Right? Like that's the whole point of driving. You know how we go to driving school? Before you had to take a test, you start driving, and then all of a sudden you go take the test to get your driver's license. You don't just show up and kind of wing it. Well, that's how many people think about marriage. And so if you're single, what Pastor Kevin said is, hey, you need to tune in even more for the next 3 weeks. You need to tune in even more. You need to understand what marriage is, how does it function, and what's the roles of it. Then he said that the second challenge we have really is sometimes in marriage, if we're honest, we just get tired of marriage. Now, I know no one would say that publicly. Like no one's standing up going, that's me. Go ahead, preach it. I'm tired. She's terrible. Go ahead. And the opposite wouldn't take place either. There's no sister going to stand up and say, he's a jerk, so can someone please pray for him? And yet, if we're really honest about marriage, there are seasons in which marriage takes place where you go, man, how did I get stuck in this? There's seasons in which marriage takes place for some people where it just feels like it's a long season. And so for you that are here, and that's your season, listen to me, dial it in. Don't fade back. Don't get all overwhelmed by the fact that you're in that season, because that's a reality of marriage. And then there's other people that are here, and listen to me. Maybe you've been divorced, or maybe you're a widow, and all of a sudden we start talking about marriage, you go, great. Glad I show up today. This makes me feel awesome. Let's just talk about how I blew it all those years, and let's talk about a woman's role in a man. If that's you, listen to me. This is where I think Peter understood this as a married man. Go to the end of 1 Peter. See, I think Peter understands no matter what spot you're in life, especially when it comes to marriage. In 1 Peter chapter 5, listen to what Peter says in verse 12. He says, I have written to you briefly, exhorting and testifying that this is the true grace of God. Stand firm in it. If you're single, stand firm in it. If you're going through a terrible season, stand firm in it. If you've been divorced, there is grace in that. Like the whole thing of Peter is writing is, hey, it doesn't matter where you're at when it comes to this idea of marriage, that God is faithful. And we can trust in his faithfulness. Because I think we have to recognize, number one, that marriage is hard. I mean, people talk about like it's hard, but no one really tells you how hard it is until you get into it. And I don't care if you're a Christian or not. All of a sudden, it doesn't matter. I remember I got married, me and Shani, and come from a non-saved person. I get saved. I go to Bible college, and I'm falling hard after God. I mean, I'm up early doing devotions. I'm praying. I'm journaling. I'm fasting. I'm doing everything to fall hard after God. And then I meet Shani, and she's falling hard after God, and she's worshiping, and she's praying, and we're doing that. And we get together, and we get married, and that first year of marriage was like, whoa, what happened? Like there was nights, and she'll tell you, I don't know where she's at, she'll tell you, like, there was nights that first year of marriage that she went to bed crying at night. Like, this is not happening. Like, how did this take place? And I think we're godly. Like, we're pursuing it hard, and we're still struggling in the midst of it. See, the reality is marriage is hard. And no one ever warns you. They do, but I do marriage counseling all the time. Doing youth ministry for so many years, I do a lot and have done a lot of marriage counseling. It's funny, as you get the newlywed that comes into your spot and you're telling them it's hard, and you ask the person, hey, can you tell me anything that's, anything that irritates you about your husband, about your future husband? Oh, no, they're great. Can you tell me anything that irritates you? Oh, no, I love him. He's perfect. She's perfect. Yes, that same couple 3 years later, and they got a list. It's like 14 miles long, let me tell you. So we get that marriage is hard, and sometimes it takes work, a lot of work in it. Sometimes it gets tiring. Sometimes I think maybe for some of you, maybe you're even here in your marriage, it's just a rut. I mean, no one's going to say it, but you got 2 kids, 3 kids, you're working, she's working. Sometimes marriage feels like you're high-fiving each other out the door, does it not? Like you're just lucky to be able to say, hey, there's someone laying next to me. Okay, he's here. Okay, she's here, because marriage becomes that sense of a rut in which we live at times. And yet that's a reality. And what happens then in that rut is you and I become very cynical with marriage. Like, it's easy to become very cynical, especially in marriage, especially if you've been divorced, or especially if you're in that single spot and you see that couple sit in front of you and they're holding hands and you're like, yeah, hold hands now. Give it some time. You won't be holding that hand. I've seen that before. Like you easily become cynical with marriage and love and all that kind of stuff. Or even worse, you become unbelieving that God can change it. See, there's a sad thing is there's many marriages where you actually believe that God somehow can raise the dead. Like I was talking Thursday to some 3rd through 5th graders, some little tiny ones on Thursday night. And we were talking about Lazarus who had a very bad day. That was our sermon for our little kids. Lazarus had a very bad day because Lazarus got sick. And Jesus knew it. Lazarus died, and Jesus showed up, and all of a sudden Martha shows up. Lazarus, you remember the story? Lazarus' sister shows up, and Jesus says, hey, why don't you roll away the stone? And remember what Martha told Jesus? Why she shouldn't roll away the stone? Because it stinks. He's been dead so long, it stinks. And that's how some people feel about their marriage. And it's been dead so long, it just stinks. There is no way that he could resurrect it. There's no way he could fix it. So you believe this God that can raise the dead, but you can't believe that he can fix your marriage. I'm going, how does that work then? If he can raise the dead, then yes, he can fix my marriage. If he can raise the dead, of course he could change my heart. He could do those things because that's what he does. That's the power of the resurrection. In Proverbs chapter 22, it says, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. In Proverbs chapter 31, it says, a wife of a noble character, who can find it? He's not saying like it can't be found. He's saying, hey, who can find it? She is worth more than rubies. Her husband is full of confidence, and her lacks nothing of value. She brings him good and not harm all the days of her life. She brings him good and not harm all the days of her life. I'll be married going on 22 years here coming up, and I wish I could sit up here today and say I have it all figured out when it comes to marriage. The reality is, last week marriage was hard. If you were in our house 2 weeks ago with our marriage, I don't know how many times I walked in the office and told Pastor Kevin, how you doing? I said, pray for me and Shani. It's a rough week right now. It's a rough run right now. Now, we're not talking divorce, and we're not talking anything. We're just going, hey, we're just not connecting. We're not intimate. It's just having a hard time right now. There's some stuff. You got to be praying for us in that. I wish I could say I have it all figured out. I don't. And so let me encourage you in this. Anything that I say today in marriage has nothing to do with me and what I'm doing. It has to do with the Lord and what he calls us to. I can tell you honestly, though, through 22 years, here's what I've learned about it. It takes work. to do it. And I'm not sure where you're at, but here's what I've done for the last maybe 10 years is I purposely try to read each year a different book about marriage. Not because I want knowledge, because I know I need it. After 22 years of marriage, I know I still need to work on my marriage. And over the years, I'm just going to point out a couple. For those of you who are newbies about marriage, here's the book you want to start with. It's really short. You could finish it like in 5 minutes and say you read a book on marriage this year. This one's called Whose Dream? And the whole point of the book is sometimes we get, or pamphlet I should say, we get into a marriage and we think, man, I have a dream about what I think marriage should be. And then I get into it and I go, that didn't match up. And his point was, in the book, and I'll give you the headline towards it, is it's not your dream. God designed marriage. God has a purpose for marriage. Your dream doesn't count in it. And as soon as you and I recognize that's not about how I want marriage to work, but how God wants marriage to work, then my marriage is going to flourish. Then my marriage is going to be right. Then my marriage is going to be holy. Then my marriage is going to be fun. God made fun. And so God goes, hey, I want to create marriage for fun. And you go, I want to function in my way for fun. And God goes, all right, how about your way? See how fun it is. And God goes, well, why don't you do it my way? Then we'll have some fun. And so this book's about, hey, whose dream is it? Is it your dream or is it God's dream? How do you want to do it? Another book that's really been great, Marriage Matters, Tony Evans, great book. I would encourage you to do this one. If you've been married longer than 10 years, this is a great book for dads, husbands. Date Your Wife. It's a great reminder that you're called to date your wife. It's funny how when you're newlywed, you're engaged, man, you're looking for opportunities for dating. You're sneaking out, you're staying up late, you don't care, it's 2 a.m. and you're still talking on the phone. Like now it's 9 o'clock and you go to bed and like you're just sleeping and snoring before she even gets there. And his whole book is going, what happened? You got to date your wife. There's got to be a purpose in it. Kingdom Marriage is a great book in it. Another book called Strengthening Your Marriage, if you want a lot of homework, if you're studious. Dr. Mack, he just kills it in the sense of giving you some work to think through on marriage. Probably one of my favorites, Timothy Keller, The Meaning of Marriage, is a good one to read. There's another one called, just for husbands, Exemplary Husbands. Excellent Wife is a great book. But probably one of my favorites as of late is What Did You Expect? It's a great book. His whole premise is you have two sinners that live together. What did you expect except for chaos? That's what you signed up for. So stop fighting it and just enjoy it and start figuring out how to work with each other in that. I say that because I want you to remember, Peter writes to a people, again, that are suffering. Like I said at the beginning, anytime suffering takes place, the things that are most fragile are the things that seem to get broken the easiest. The things are the most fragile, are the things that seem to get broken the most easiest. In my mind, I picture marriage a lot of times like this. Have you ever been driving down the street and all of a sudden a rock clips up and all of a sudden hits the corner of your car? Now most of us, we get a little nick in our car window. We go, oh, man, a little nick. That's a bummer. We just keep on driving. Right, it doesn't affect us, doesn't change anything. All of a sudden, until that one cold morning or one hot summer day when you turn the AC on, all of a sudden that little nick does what to your window? All of a sudden shatters the whole window. So a lot of times I think that's how marriage is. You have this little nick over here that's an issue. But instead of dealing with the issue, you just keep on driving. You just keep on going. And all of a sudden, when suffering begins to take place, when coldness starts to happen, when things start to heat up, all of a sudden, your marriage gets shattered, and you're going, what happened? Well, it's over there. It's been there the whole time, but you've never taken a look at how to change it. You've never taken the time that it would have cost you $10, $25, have someone come put some glue on that thing and fix it all up. Now you need a whole new windshield. Now you got to restart your marriage all over. Does that make sense? And so Peter is writing to a people that he wants them to encourage. And here's the thing. I think for a lot of us, though, if we're honest, we have a culture that is so just devalued marriage that we don't even see it as important anymore. Would you agree? Let me say it this way. Here's how we do it. We devalue marriage in our culture in so many ways. One way is that if you're single, here's how you devalue it. Is is you start making a list of what your spouse is going to be. Now, I know that sounds crazy because we all have a list, do we not? But here's how most of your lists go. He's tall. He's dark. He's handsome. Makes about 70, 80 grand, 90, maybe 120. Like we got a list of what we think that person is going to be like, right? And vice versa. The guy has a list too. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have a list. I'm just saying what's your list look like. If your list is all external, if your list is all there, if your list is all about you getting what